Hey, howdy, and welcome to the Big and Bright podcast. As you may see, it's just me again, just Justice James. Nick decided to take another vacation and leave me to the dirty work to have to report the news. Also, if you haven't noticed, we haven't put so many episodes out lately. That's because of a lot of technical issues, mostly my fault, but I'm still going to blame Nick, because that's what I do. Anyways, welcome to the show. I'm going to start this one off with saying please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell, whatever that means. I don't know. Nick says to do it, so do it. Anyways, today's show is a little bit of a mix of things. I'm going to talk about a San Antonio woman of a church stealing some money. Talk about Mark Cuban in a good light for once. Going to talk about what Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton's been doing lately. And, of course, build the wall. Stay tuned for the rest of that. Well, to start off, let me just talk about this woman from San Antonio. A San Antonio woman was sentenced this week to 7 years in prison for stealing $660,000 from Windcrest Church. Now, this church is obviously in San Antonio, around the area. This woman's name is Lavelle Wilson. She took money from a church called New Creation Christian Fellowship from 2014 to 2019. Now, how'd she get away with it for so long? That's a great question. No clue. But what happened was officials said that Wilson was in charge with the two bank accounts that were linked to the church. And at one point, the church's executive committee was kind of wondering about what was going on with the money, and they wanted to conduct a review of the financial reports and expenses in 2019. She refused, which is weird, because why wouldn't you just hand it over if nothing's wrong? I don't get that. I don't get why they just didn't fire her from the get-go. But anyways, she refused to turn over the financial statements, so the DA's office had to request them, and the committee invoked a formal vote in order to request it from here. I don't know why it required a vote. I don't know what's going on with this church, but fine. They have some regulations put in place. They had to take a vote to get it. Should have been handed over. Anyways, they still got it. Well, she pled guilty because it was clearly obvious that she stole money, and the weird thing was, no one bothered to question this throughout this whole time. Because here's what she bought with the money as listed in this report. A trip to Hawaii, shopping sprees, upscale dining experiences, fast food, okay, everybody buys fast food, personal loan payments and cell phone payments, and also some other unknown expenses. I guess it was quite a bit. Now, I know people who work for our church that Nick and I attend. Now, I'm not saying that some of them don't make a good chunk of money. I really don't know the exact figure they make. But if they're going on these going on a trip to Hawaii and then constantly going to upscale dining places, it makes you wonder, like, where's this money coming from? What's going on? Now, maybe her husband had a great job. I don't know. I don't know if she's married or not. I really didn't say. But wouldn't you think that this would be something you kind of have some questions about? Like, hey, I'm not trying to call you out, but... So, because 2014 to 2019, so this has been going on for a while. So eventually, after a couple of years of this, you have to ask, what's going on? How are you able to afford all this? Are you charging the church's money to this? Because I know when I go out with some of the staff of our church, typically if we're talking about church matters, the church pays for it. Well, we're not going to go to some fine restaurant where it's $100 a plate. No, that's not what the money's for. It's to pay for a decent meal, pay for a regular meal, but not pay for something that's extravagant. And if that came back, the church would likely say, yeah, no, you're paying that out of your own pocket. We're not paying for that. What's going on here? No, this isn't for an event. This is for 2 or 3 people. We're not going to pay $300-$400 for a check. It's not happening. So this person was a trusted member of the church also. This is horrible because you're a trusted member of the church. Not always, but typically you attend the church in some form or fashion. I know there's quite a bit of people who work for one church but attend another. But if you're a trusted member and you're still doing this, this life may only give you 7 years, but I really hope you repent, because there's an afterlife. I believe there is, and there's one or the other. And fraud, in Dante's Inferno, people who commit fraud is one of the deepest depths of the layer of hell. I don't even know there's layers of hell at all, but I imagine that because of the sins you do on this earth, there's likely a special place for you in hell for those same sins that you committed. Now, I hope that she, like I said, finds repentance. I hope the 7 years is enough time for her to remember why she's there and to turn a new leaf. Also, only 7 years for stealing almost $700,000. So I guess for every $100,000 is a year or something like that. I'm not quite sure of the statute. It's just very odd. I figure something like that kind of fraud, active theft, and taking advantage of a nonprofit organization, you'd think it'd be higher. I guess not. Either way, she's still seeing jail time, which is good because she deserves it, and it's not alleged because she pled guilty, so that's over. Now, I hope this church possibly has a better vetting process in the future about who they let take care of the money, or they have more than one person in charge of 2 bank accounts linked to the church. I think you need to have probably more eyes on it, maybe have 2 or 3 just to have accountability both ways, because just because one person does the accounting this way, it's always nice to have a double check, and vice versa. It's not a bad thing to think about. Also, I'm not quite sure how many accounts this church does have, so maybe it was 2 of 10, and so they didn't really think about it. But either way, you might want to have some double checks and maybe take out that whole you have to have the committee vote in order to check records. To me, that's kind of an issue. It's like, no, just hand me the records. You literally work for us. Hand us the records, please. Oh, I'm not done. Okay, when you get done, hand them back to me at the end of the day. I want to see them. Something's up. Or I think something's up, and I want to double check. Should be simple. Anyways, that's what happened in San Antonio this week, or at least one portion of San Antonio. Now, let's talk about Mark Cuban. I know. Typically, when Nick and I talk about Mark Cuban, for instance, remember the national anthem controversy about him not playing it, that NBA had to put a rule in place to say you're going to play the national anthem. Then Texas put a rule in place, if you're a professional sport in our state, you're going to play the national anthem. Yeah, that same Mark Cuban. Well, this time, it's actually a good thing. He's actually doing something pretty great. If you don't know, Mark Cuban is a billionaire. Dude has a crap ton of money. If you own a team of any sporting event, even soccer, which isn't really a real sport, you still have to have a good chunk of money. So, that being said, that kind of helps you figure out what his money range is. Anyways, he launched, this happened a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't actually see it until today, and I thought it was quite interesting because Dallas Observer was putting something about it, and there's also a catalystindependent.org put it up about it, NPR talked about it. A lot of people are talking about it now, but it happened about 3 weeks ago, so I'm really interested to talk about it now. Anyways, what he did was launched a online drugstore / pharmacy. Now, I know you're thinking, another pharmacy, another big pharma, who cares? Well, here's the cool thing. How he's selling it is actually cost plus 15%. So instead of paying the usual fee of your medicine, you're actually paying exactly what it costs to get the medicine, then an upscale of 15%. Likely to pay for the workers that are doing the jobs for him to fill the prescriptions or to keep the site alive. I don't really think he's going to make a lot of money off this, and I don't think that's what his intention was. I think his intention is to help people and actually do the right thing, and it's a great thing to see someone who with that kind of money saying, I don't really plan on making bukus of money. I just want to help people because I already have a buku of money. So that's really cool to see. Now, for instance, they gave a little count, and they have a lot of drugs listed, but I'm going to pick up on one because I think it's quite interesting. A 30 count of, I can't pronounce this correctly, so forgive me, imatinib, I'm just going to go with that. This drug is used for leukemia and other cancers, which, if you're in that spot, it's quite a traumatic spot to be in because you're already dealt a bad hand. Well, in a typical pharmacy, this would cost for a 30 count around $2,502.60 roughly. But with Mark Cuban's pharmacy, it's as low as $17.10. That's amazing. So, I can't imagine other drugs that are nowhere near as needed. I'm saying not needed because maybe I don't need them, but other people obviously do. But this is one for leukemia and cancer, which is already expensive with the treatments already. And then you add the cost of pharmaceuticals and other drugs attached to it to continue the battle with leukemia and cancer. I can't imagine if someone being in that spot. It's a tough spot to be in. But if you've already paid out all this money, and now the drugs you need, because only a 30 count, only 30, likely one a day. So that's a month's worth. $2,500 right there. Your money's already gone from the cancer treatments of likely radiation and staying in the hospital and other things. And now you got to pay another $2,500 every month. That's horrible. That's what happens when you put a lot of red tape on it. But he's trying to do something very nice. This site is actually requesting more transparency so you can see the cost and see the upcharge, so you know what you're paying from the start, which is obviously unlike Big Pharma, which says, spin the wheel, and $2,000, there you go, $3,000 for what? Just pay it, because we're not going to give you the answer. Because if you don't know, when stuff goes to the FDA, it costs a crap ton of money. That's why the reason the FDA is not really favored in my own light, because I get the reason to do a safe check, but if some other country is making a drug that's just as good, why don't we allow it? Well, because we don't. Well, that's kind of an issue, because you can actually exchange a lot that way, because it's working in, say, Japan. Why wouldn't it work here? People are people are people. Yeah, of course, different ethnicities and different body types can react to drugs differently, but the general rule is if it works for him or her, it's going to work for me. You'd think. But the FDA, of course, is a bureaucracy that's faceless and you can't vote them out. And they're the reason why, if you don't remember, the Rona vaccine, which was basically created about 2 weeks after the Rona was founded. Rona was found like, oh, this is a new disease. And we have the equation to break it down to make a vaccine about it. This happened about 2 weeks after, so around February, March. If you don't remember, when did it get rolled out? Well, it was announced, curiously, a week after the Trump and Biden 2020 election. Trump had been saying the entire election that this vaccine will be out. It'll be out. He was called crazy. He was called an idiot. They were saying it takes at least 18 months. There's no way this happens. Well, it did. And it just so happened to wait after the election. Because, of course, no politics are in the FDA, because they're definitely not politicians who get paid by politicians. We didn't obviously know that the vaccine wouldn't repel the virus as it has been shown. It doesn't. It really doesn't. But it helps you not have death or be hospitalized if you have the vaccine. That's according to the CDC. It's according to the Holy Fauci. That's the rules. Anyways, because of the FDA process, it took forever. And they're still trying to implement new parts of the vaccine that react to Omicron. If you haven't noticed, Omicron's basically gone. But we have a vaccine for it soon for a booster, so good job, FDA. Good job. You're totally on the ball. But anyways, this, to me, is actually one of the most conservative things that Mark Cuban has ever done. I don't know if he purposely did it this way. I don't think he has a lot of conservative leanings besides when it comes to keeping my money. But it's pretty dang conservative. Because those who gripe about, well, Big Pharma this, Big Pharma that, the government should do blank. Well, when they say the word government, they typically mean the federal government. That's never a good idea. The federal government always screws it up. Just ask the Native American how well the government worked for them. So, him, with his own money, billions of dollars, is saying, I'm going to take the loss, because it's likely going to be a loss for him, but I'm going to make money for people, or I'm going to make deals for people that don't have a lot. Or even if they do, who cares? My pharmacy is likely going to be the one sought out if this keeps going. Granted, this is only 3 weeks since being launched, So who knows if it actually stays alive? Who knows if the government doesn't shut it down? Who knows the FDA has some kind of like, oh, well, they didn't do this to the absolute T, therefore it's not legit. Who freaking knows? But at least he's trying. To me, that's a great thing to see. And a person is taking this on. Not the government. A person who happens to have a lot of money. Granted, this is a tough thing for a regular person to do because we don't have that kind of money. But if it works, it's really cool. It's a really interesting idea to put forward and to possibly help a lot more people along the way, especially those for cancer or for HIV or AIDS or any kind of all the diseases that maybe I don't know about because I haven't been experienced with, haven't been affected by them. But there's many out there that have, and that if they can buy their drugs a whole lot cheaper, that's awesome. That's really awesome. I would consider it as some form of even calling it possibly a blessing if it actually works out. I mean, this is a great philanthropic event, or not event, but a great philanthropic idea. And I'm just happy that he is influenced to do this. I don't know what persons talked to him about it. I don't know if he thought it up himself, but this is a great idea. So kudos to Mark Cuban. We don't give you a lot of highlights, basically because of what you say in your politics. But this part of your politics, I'm all for. And if Nick was here, I bet he'd agree with me. And even though because he's not here, he's going to have to agree with me. So thanks, Nick. Thanks for agreeing with me. Now, let's get on to some Texas nitty gritty. The Texas Attorney General, Ken Paxton, great dude, sues Facebook parent company Meta over the use of facial recognition technology. Now, this is a lawsuit filed in Harrison County, which I believe is around Marshall, Texas, and East Texas. Why did he put it there? Not dead sure. But this is a suit for hundreds of billions of dollars in civil penalties. Now, the biggest issue is with the facial geometric technology. It recognized your face, and the basics of it is that if you put a picture on Facebook of, let's just say I put a picture of me and my wife and I just make sure it's under me and I tag me. Well, it naturally is going to tag my wife because she's also on Facebook. I'm not on anymore, but let's just say for the hypothetical I am. But it would tag my wife. Now, automatically. Why? Because it recognizes her face, has a name to it and says, is this you? And it allows you to go, yes, that's me. Or it just naturally tags you. Well, because of that, this was done without consent of other people. Because they sent information of that facial recognition to others for profit. That's how Facebook makes its money, is that it sells your information to people who can say, well, according to this demographic, they probably like this product, so let's just send them ads from this product. That's basically how Facebook stays free. Now, Texas had a state law in 2009 which required people to obtain consent before capturing a biometric identifier of an individual. It's a bunch of gobbledygook. Basically your facial recognition. This law has a $25,000 penalty for each unlawful capturing of the identifier. So every time Facebook did this, 25 grand. They did it twice, 50 grand. Thrice, 75 grand. And so on. That is how they got to the billions of dollars of damage and civil fees. However, Facebook, of course, calls this meritless because if you're on the other side, you don't give credit to the side that's suing you. That's just lawsuits 101. But Facebook has come back and said, we actually ended this use of facial recognition last November in 2021, I believe. And it also said it would delete more than 1 billion users' facial templates. So, there's no issue. They even said that there was an opt-out system in 2017 that we put out for all users. And it also said last year, never mind, we're just going to delete them, so you don't have to opt out at all. We'll just get rid of it. They're promising that they won't use it. Hint, hint, they're big tech. They lie a lot. And as I just told you, the way they make their money is by selling your information to others who might want to sell you some other stuff. So I have a high doubt that they will lie. This is much like the, I forget the actual name. It's a Supreme Court ruling for the United States Supreme Court that if there's a chance for it to reoccur, even if the issue at hand is now not being done, then you can still sue for it. So, for instance, I put a penalty on women for the usual ones they give is like for abortion, like they do it before the time of viability, which for now is totally allowed to be aborted according to constitutional law. Well, the government puts this in. Someone who wants to have abortion say I can't get it, and then right when they take the suit, they say, "Oh, never mind, we take that law back." Well, that's just saying, okay, so you took the law back. I see it. So you're saying they have no case, but what's stopping you from just putting it right back in after we dismiss this case? Nothing. So therefore, it's not really a stop. We're going to continue with the case. And I think that's what's going to happen here, because they can say, well, we stopped it. We're not going to do it again. We promise. Well, you're not a voting body. You're not actually a government system. So nothing's really stopping you from putting this back in place or to continue selling this information. So the state has actually asked and had an order for Facebook to maintain the relevant data they have currently, because they said they were going to delete it, yet they still have the data. There's a little weird step there. So they can investigate it. So I don't trust them at all. I think they're using information a lot more than we actually know of. So I'm glad this is a case that's coming out of Texas, and this is possibly something that could have Supreme Court implications. But I'm focused on it mainly from Texas, because that's terrible to use my stuff to sell it off without me having any kind of consent. And you could say, well, you agreed to it. Like, yeah, who read all 200 pages of that and said agree? No, you want to use Facebook. You just click agree to send for any kind of Apple update, Microsoft update. You don't read that crap. You just say agree because you want to use your computer or phone or whatever it may be. So it's not really an agreement, but that's typically how they actually get around stuff like that. So we'll see how this turns out. This is a just now made lawsuit this week. It's going to be a while before anything happens, because Facebook has a lot of money. And if you have a lot of money, the first thing you do is motion for continuance. Back that stuff up. Put it 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road. I mean, we just saw with a probe right now with Durham for Hillary Clinton spying on Trump that it took until now for indictments to come out against Hillary's lawyer team for spying and bugging the president of the United States. That was in 2016, 2017. It's 2022. Stuff takes a while, and it's going to take a while if you have a lot of money to make sure to back it up. So we'll see how this goes. Excuse me. I can't when I talk about Facebook, it makes me choke up. It's just nasty. So we'll see the latest process. We'll keep you updated as best we can. This is a long slew of suits that Ken Paxton has done against Facebook. So this isn't the first one. He has other nitpicky stuff he's done, so he's getting like different judgments all at the same time. And I think it's smart, because if you do one big suit, Facebook again is just going to back it up. But if you have a lot of nitpicky suits and about 10 or 15 of them, they're going to have to spend resources, spend time to address each and every issue. So kudos to Ken Paxton. He's doing a great job on that part. And if you don't know, early voting is going on right now. If you happen to want to vote for Ken Paxton for the primary, go for it. I know I did, so I'll tell you how I voted on that one. But that's just me. Early voting, do it. If you want to wait till actual voting day instead of doing voting season, March 1st, little tidbit there just to remind you that voting is going on. And I probably should have done that earlier, but here we are. This is me running the show. It's not always as organized as Nick makes it. Now, the final topic. Build the wall. Build the wall. Oh, baby. We are building that wall. According to Tribune and Newsweek, Texas Tribune and Newsweek, Texas has claimed some panels. Now, what that means is there were some panels that were used for the wall that Trump was building. As you may know, Biden essentially stopped all building of the wall, unless it's to make a levee out in El Paso in the river, the Rio Grande Valley, which is totally still a levee. But he essentially stopped it. Well, there's all this material set aside. So the government had no use for it. Now, when the government has no use for it, or they get too much of it, what they do is declare it surplus property from the federal government. When you do that, other states or other entities or other businesses can purchase this surplus at usually a smaller fee because it's already been paid for once. The government's trying to get basically the cost of theirs back. So it's still, we spent money for that. Now we're spending money again for stuff that we already spent money on. I get it. It's annoying, but welcome to being a part of the federal government, because Texas is. Anyways, 1,700 unused panels were shipped to Greg Abbott for our state-funded wall. Now, if you don't remember, Abbott tried to build another wall with private money, and he got like around, I forget how many millions it is. I don't have it in front of me, but he got a good chunk of money, and a lot of it were undisclosed donors, and people had an issue with that, which is funny because they never had an issue with George Soros funding stuff like DAs in Austin, which has created a whole bunch of problems for people not being convicted, and Austin having a huge uptick in crime. But they're going to have an issue because it's a conservative matter, and we hate them. So that was the big issue with that one. Well, this one, pretty transparent. Here are the 1,700 panels. We want to buy them, and we did. This was purchased. This was purchased with through the U.S. Department of Defense and the Texas Facilities Commission. The commission applied for this in November of last year in 2021 to receive the surplus panels through the federal government's General Service Administration. Again, a lot of gobbledygook, a lot of red tape for no necessary reason, but welcome to the federal government. That's how it works. Now, this program allows nonprofit organizations and state and local governments to receive property the federal government no longer needs. Now, when it says received, doesn't say that no payment was made, just says received, so there likely has to be some payment because government never gives away for free. If you haven't heard the phrase of, there's no such thing as a free lunch, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So that's what happens. Well, anyways, this panel was used to pretty much patch holes in certain key areas. It wasn't done to be like, this strip, just build it. It was, well, let's build it over here, let's build it over there, let's use some over here, to try to have some type of solidified walls in areas that typically have the biggest problem of people pouring over the border. Granted, will this stop the border? No, Biden won't do anything, so there's nothing really we can do besides Operation Lone Star, which hasn't had a whole lot of success, but it's at least trying, because I don't really see what Abbott else can do, because he can't overstep the federal government. Even though it's our border, it's a tough thing to do for himself, because it's a lot of toes you're stepping on, and I imagine it probably would be DOJ getting all PO'd and saying you can't do this and put us in lawsuits forever and ever and ever. But if in the totality, these 1,700 panels built about 1.3 miles, so it's an extra mile. That's pretty great. I hope we can get some more panels, because the time being, Abbott, I know when he started Operation Lone Star, he had just state troopers down there kind of monitoring the certain parts of the river that they come across, the ones that you could literally walk right across. But then they started putting 18-wheeler trailers, like not an actual trailer, but like the boxes, like the cargo boxes in certain areas. So it had a small gap in between each one. And that helped a lot, because you can say, like, well, when they get here, they only have one funnel, or they come across, or they try to saw into it. Well, you can saw into it. There's a trooper on the other side going, hey, I hear ya. You want to stop? No, I'll just wait until you come to this side, then we'll patch it right back up. Whatever. So we're trying. Is it the best? No, because Biden won't actually enforce the border laws. That's something we're going to have to constantly fight, likely until 2024, or until Biden wakes up. So 2024, because Biden's never going to wake up. He's been asleep since he's been elected. Anyways, I think it's an awesome thing. I think we need to continue building that wall in certain areas, because these border cities, they're not against immigration. They're against illegal immigration, because they're the ones who get it. And then these fly-by-night travelers, because it has happened, we have seen that they've been sent to Houston. If you don't remember, Fox News, and only Fox News, because other sites weren't actually going to report on it, they actually caught quite a bit of illegal immigrants being let off a bus. Here's your ticket. Here's your court appearance. We trust you. And then they were shipped around the whole United States. A lot of them coming to Houston. Kind of makes you wonder why Houston's really ramping up that we want that 24-hour voting system in, and we really don't want to worry about the IDs. I'm not saying they're trying to commit fraud. I'm just saying it opens it up, and you're getting quite a bit of immigrants, so I see why you want to open it up. Kind of makes you wonder. Anyways, that's what's going on this week that I found important and to report to you. We will try to have more episodes out, but it all depends on technical issues and timing, and if my computer's completely charged, because I will admit, we tried 3 times to get the last episode out. All 3 times, something went wrong. For some reason, God did not want us to report on whatever we're reporting on, so it must have been some bad stuff. Who knows? Anyways, this has been Justice James, and don't forget, when it seems so dark you can't see, it is dark. The stars at night are big and bright. We'll see you next week.